right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Simply Trade News Roundup. Not so much news today because we're going a little bit of a different route. My name is Annik. I'll be your host today. And this actually is a special episode because we are going towards supply chain today, which we usually don't do much. But I wanted to take a little bit of a different route. So today I'm joined by Sarah Hurzeler, an entrepreneur innovating at the crossroads of artificial intelligence and supply chain management. Sarah is the co-founder of Open Crown AI, a company helping organizations rapidly automate and optimize their supply chain workflows using practical AI solutions. In addition to leading Open Crowd, she serves as a fractional chief growth officer at UCanTrade and advises businesses as a supply chain consultant. Sarah brings a wealth of hands-on experience from both startup and enterprise environment, and her current work is transforming how companies build resilience, transparency, and efficiency across global supply chains. Funny story is that I did not know her before at all, and LinkedIn is a great space to connect, as I feel like that's what you're supposed to do on LinkedIn. And I love doing it. I saw her picture, it was all pink, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to connect with her. And sure enough, we connected. I saw all her posts, and they were so educational, so informative. And I was like, I need to meet with her. So that's what I did. We met before, we kind of talked and kind of hit it off right away. So that's kind of how where our journey started. So again, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I'm so lucky to have a different type of talking points today than we usually do because it's been kind of the same for the past few weeks. And yeah, I'm so glad I found you online.
Well, I'm so glad you found me as well, and thank you for um, giving me some time to speak with you. And I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, me too. So I kind of want to jump in. Well, first off, let's go a little bit into your background because I feel like people don't know you. People are they're like, okay, who is she? What is she doing here? And supply chain, what are we doing? So how did you get into supply chain? Because you founded a company, Open Crown AI, which AI has overtaken the industry. And so you kind of took a lead. Why did you do that? And why supply chain?
Oh, so many great questions. Well, for me, I really started my career as an engineer, and engineers are all over the supply chain and operations. And so when I started out of school, I really began in the supply chain fields as a quality engineer way back when, but had the opportunity to evolve that into logistics, into supply chain strategy, into all these different components that make up the supply chain. And I will say, like, the one thing about supply chain, it's so ripe full of processes and always changing that it's if you like solving problems, if you like building things, it's a really good place to be. And it's a really good fit for those who study engineering quite often. So that's how I ended up here. It's something that I just love so much and I'm passionate about. It is one space that is never boring, especially not boring in 2025. So
Yeah. And and I kind of want to get into the
yeah.
major trends currently and challenges because it's funny because we talk about mostly compliance on this podcast and tariffs. How does supply chain differ from it? Would you say it's the overall image of trade or how do you differentiate?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a really good question. I mean, the supply chain is really the end to end, from beginning to end, getting goods to a market, making those goods, moving the raw materials. And a huge part of that, especially this year, is understanding what's happening in trade and where risks are, where there are unknowns. And so I would say, from a supply chain perspective, trade compliance, they're definitely a key part of the chain. They're a key part of the team, and supply chain's a team sport. We need all of those members and things functioning together to be effective.
Yeah. And so you kind of mentioned 2025. Supply chain is more important than ever now. What major trends and challenges stand out to you at the moment?
I Is this a trick question? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I mean, the obvious
Maybe.
yeah. The obvious answer from a challenge perspective is tariffs. I mean, this is the first year that all industries have the potential to be impacted by tariffs at various levels. In 2018 and 2019, we had the first round of this in certain industries. One of those was fashion. I was leading a fashion supply chain at the time. And we got a taste of seeing how quickly an administration could make decisions about tariff and tariff amounts and being able to understand what the financial impacts of those decisions were and figure out where do we pivot, where do we flex. And this year, it is not only fashion that is enduring that environment. It's everything from electronics to steel to food. I mean, it's all of us that are making things overseas or bringing in even raw materials overseas. So I would say the obvious answer is um, what's happening with tariffs and really the dynamic component of it that's hitting so many industries. The interesting trend that's happening this year that isn't a challenge is AI. I mean, technology is changing in ways that we haven't seen before. It's enabling supply chains to get better and faster and smarter at much more of a rapid pace, and it's pretty exciting. So I would say both. We have some big challenges, but we also have some big opportunities with what's coming down the pipe with technology.
And that's funny because you kind of co-founded a company that went into the AI sector to help companies. What exactly does your platform offer or software offer to these companies with, with the AI trend being in such a boom?
Yeah. No, it's such an interesting space. So I've been on really the supply chain side, operating with brands and as a retailers for over 20 years. The reason why I decided to go find this found this company with another um, tech guru was because of how the technology is. I mean, it is very adaptable and it is very quick and easy to use. And I think for us in supply chain, those are a lot of the things that we need. We need flexibility. We need solutions that are going to be easily deployed. We need solutions that are going to be cost thoughtful. And once I saw and used the technology for myself, I could not help but wanna jump into this side because there's a lot of people that are out there that understand the technology or have really come from the tech side, but there isn't a lot that understand technology and have actually run and led a supply chain. And I think that's a key differentiator for us because these are we're solving problems that, like, I've been solving for 20 years. I have seen repeated at, different industries and at different companies, as the supply chain has adapted. So I would say for me, like, moving into that made sense. The types of things that we're solving for, I mean, some of them are really data based in a lot of cases. So supply chain is very data centric. We have tons of data. We do not have lots of insights. And often our data is hard to extract. So it's in emails, it's in spreadsheets. I mean, we have PLM, TMS, WMS, ERP, origin management system. We're getting booking reports online. We're getting calls. We're getting texts, right? The amount of information we have is really rich. But if we can't leverage or make that data usable quickly, it starts to lose its value. And so, one of the things that we're focused on is being able to easily take data, really in any form from any channel, and make it usable, whether that's being a connector of taking emails or taking PDFs and putting that information in a system automatically, or in some cases it's compiling data and doing some initial analytics. But I would say for us, really the starting point has been making access and usability of data, um, unlocking that for supply chains.
Yeah, and there's a lot of resilience and risk management, I would say, currently. I mean, there's at the moment, I think businesses have to take some kind of risks. And analytics and AI tools, I feel like can help identify those kind of risks. Is that something that the tool does as well? Or
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I think for supply chain, if I was gonna take a step back, during COVID, we all learned how the value of diversification in supply chain, whether that's looking at where you're sourcing goods, how many different vendors you're sourcing with, looking at your transportation providers and seeing if you're diversified there. But when you add diversification, you add additional complexity in data. And so for us, being able to tap into being able to make all this different data from many different sources usable quicker has enabled a lot of our customers to be more resilient and really start to mitigate their risk where they're spending less time really trying to find the right data and using it to empower and make better decisions as things start to change in supply chain.
And where do you see the most issues? Is it small businesses or is it large businesses that are coming to you most that are struggling?
I mean, I think all supply chains are having very similar challenges, especially this year. I mean, the tariffs are not just for big companies, they're not just for small companies. A larger company has different needs, a smaller company, than a smaller company, but I think all of them are experiencing really the same amount of risk, they all need the same amount of flexibility, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Um, so I
It's
would say, yeah,
it's funny, I
everywhere.
heard a story of someone, I think they were struggling with tariffs in China, and the CEO was like, "Okay, well," he talked to the team. He talked to them and said, "You know what? We need to change our supply chain, and we need to do it by, like, the next months." And they're like, "Well, that's impossible. We can't, we have so many shipments coming. We have all this process. Changing its entire supply chain, let's say we want to reroute it to India. We want to have supply
Yeah.
chain from India, which is not the best move anymore. We know this because there's now new tariffs in India as well. But uh, it's not that easy. How do you make that work, especially now?
Yeah.
How can we use these tools to change your entire supply chain to ultimately stay profitable?
In your example, I mean, the supply chain is a physical process. I mean, a lot of the folks that work in supply chain, they interact with data. They're in front of a computer. Not everyone is stationed where the actual operations are taking place, whether that be like a warehouse or maybe at the port or in factories. And sometimes I think we forget, or our partners forget, that there's a physical movement of production and goods that happen within supply chain. And so I could imagine the team's response in that case where they're looking at it going, these are physical problems that need a physical solution, because then you start thinking about, where can I find a factory that has enough capacity or labor that can absorb maybe my production, that is outside of China, or at least gives me one other country to kind of pivot to, as tariff risk starts to change. I think the complement to that is also you do have to have some kind of information to know, what does it mean from a financial model standpoint if you're going to, move production to Sri Lanka, or if you're going to move it to Thailand or Mexico or, Guatemala, where all these different countries that you can move. You have to solve for the physical, but often you need some digital or data information to be able to also analyze it. Is this the right decision? So I think there's this real complement between technology and then, teams and people who are physically making decisions and building the supply chain.
And it's not happening overnight.
Nothing does. Nothing does.
Nothing does a trade. So another important part, I think, in the supply chain area is advancing sustainability and transparency within supply chains. How do you see sustainability within your business model?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think for sustainability and transparency both, 20 years ago, it was you needed a policy, you needed, some documentation, maybe you're measuring carbon footprint,
Yeah.
and that's what sustainability often looked like in supply chain organizations. Um, Consumers, stakeholders, customers, they're all looking for action in the current state. So I think there's been a shift from policy really into practice. And, I mean, I will just answer this question in general for supply chains. I think that's a very exciting thing that is actually happening. If you look at, let's just take transparency as far as this, one of the components. You can go on Nike.com and you can actually see where they make their stuff. You can see the factories, you can see where they're, the name of the factory, where it is. Sometimes you can find contact information on that. If you go to a brand called Everlane, you can see not only on it, like when I go online to go buy something like a shirt from them, I can see the factory it was produced in. I can see their landed cost is. So I can see the cost of the item to produce it at the factory, the import fees, the transportation fees. I mean, think about how much transparency there is now. And I think, companies and brands are often they're being so transparent because they wanna also be accountable to the decisions that they're making, for the products they're producing. So I think it's a pretty exciting time. As far as a data perspective or technology perspective, it's easier to do that now because there is better tools to be able to really see where your goods are and track, down to a specific SKU where it was made and make that transparent all the way through your system. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's awesome. Well, because we have forced labor and
Yeah.
all that, it also gives the consumer accountability. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to purchase this because they're making efforts. So how does AI help sustainability and transparency, you think? Because I've heard, I mean, there's many tools out there, so many who can help um, a supply chain share their transparency. But how does Open Crown, let's say, help this function?
Yeah, I think for us, like, really, since we're plugged into a lot of data consumption, it's being able to consume data from factories and suppliers and partners and being able to make and look for that data and make it usable. So if you think about just if you look at one component like ESG and you're thinking about maybe how things are being produced, how much resources are being used in a specific factory. There's all this information that's being extracted. But oftentimes, you're working with 100, 500, 1,000 different factories. They're all going to be in different languages. They're going to, be in different documents. There's not really always a standardized way to consume this data. And I think one thing for Open Crown that we've been again focused on is just making data usable so then we're providing better insights to the people that are running the supply chains and the teams that are making data day so if you think about the old way of I have this audit from a factory and I'm having to enter it into a spreadsheet and that consumes 75% of the time that person is spending on that, one process. If you can cut down that amount of time, they can spend much more time on what does the data actually say? And is there a
Yeah.
risk here? Is there a different conversation we need to have with our supplier or with our partner? So I think, it's really moving it from these non-value added activities like data entry and allowing teams to be more focused on the activities that actually add value.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked up what AI adoption benefits for these companies, it says that companies all experience reduced logistics costs, improved sustainability, um, real-time visibility, which enables faster decisions. And I think if some companies have this ability to introduce AI into their company, um, they can focus on all these different things that they don't have time to focus on right now
Yeah,
and ultimately
absolutely.
increase profitability.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like just make better decisions for the overall system and ultimately for the customer.
Yeah,
Um,
but
mhm.
also there's a lot of judgment around AI, and I think some people might feel resistant towards it because there can be challenges. So when people adopt AI, what kind of challenges might they face in the supply chain, or how can they overcome these? When they first introduce AI,
Yeah,
is there anything that comes to mind for you?
it's a great question. I think probably the biggest challenge for AI adoption that we see is just the technology approach. So the last 20 years, everyone has implemented, if you've been in supply chain long enough, you've been through probably an ERP implementation or PLM or WMS or P, you know, TMS, any of these systems that we're utilizing. You've probably at least been through one, probably multiple. And all of those technology roadmaps follow a very similar approach. Look for the problem, looking at specific software solutions that you're going to buy out of the box most often. You're looking at an ROI that's typically years. It's going to be a long path to be able to implement that solution with your team as you're doing, taking your data from one system to another. You're maybe hooking up some new APIs into a new system. You're training your teams on this solution. And it is a big, cumbersome task often to implement technology. AI is much different because of its flexibility. It really, I would say the road to entry is to not think about it in that old way that we think about technology. I would I really would say, like, the obstacle is to say all these things we learned about implementing systems, some of them still probably apply, but there is a different thing here with AI because it is flexible and adaptable to what you might need for your business or your supply chain or process.
And do you think you need to hire new people to handle this kind of AI, or do you think you could train your current staff to be able to use the new system?
I really think the best thing to do is to find partners who have built tools in AI that have been successful and partner with them. What the technology people need is they need experts that, here's our process, here's what we're having challenges with. Here's what our current technology doesn't solve for. Can you help us build it? And start small. I think that's the other part about being
Okay.
willing to start small. I mean, usually technology is a big project. It's the big thing that we initiation or a task that we do for the year. For AI, it doesn't have to be big. It can be, hey, let's start by automating this one repetitive task, see how it goes. I really think that the more people use it, they'll understand the difference for how this technology works. And once they see that, I mean, the ideas are endless. It'll be like, okay, we just solved this problem. Let's now go solve this. Um, and I would say people once they start using it or see the value prop of being able to work this way with technology, it's going to be a big game changer for those of us in supply chain.
Yeah, and for the future of AI, do you think if some businesses might not ever step onto the AI train, do you think those businesses will be left behind?
I think in 5 years, not using AI is going to be like not using Excel today
Wow.
or email.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what it was like when we started moving from faxes, really faxes, to having email or moving into a spreadsheet environment. I think AI is going to be revolutionary in that sense. So they might not be using it today, but I think everyone's going to be using it in 5 years in some capacity.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should jump on the train right now. I mean, there's so many new AI tools that have different sectors, and you could probably have 5 AIs within your company because they all do 5 different jobs.
Yeah. And I mean, absolutely. And if you think about the timeline, like the timeline to turn on some of these, to turn on AI for us is less than a week in most of our solutions. So if you think about
Really?
wanting to go test, yeah, we're not talking about 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Okay.
Oh, wow.
It can be very fast to turn on and test. But once you test the concept, then you should go expand it within your processes and operation.
Yeah, and it seems like supply chain it really is at the core of global trade and compliance because if you have your supply chain figured out, right, you have it set up to where it's using AI, then the compliance job will be easier.
Yeah.
And it just we're all have more data to assess and make better decisions. I think it all comes together. And then again, we have the end to end supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And if you think about, like, in today's environment, we're taking executive orders,
Yeah.
or tweets, and we're going, okay, what does this mean in terms of import fee risk or cost? And they're taking information from one source. They're now having to find ways to apply it within the data that they have to then understand and work with, the financial teams, the GMs of business, of the business unit to say, here's where our risk is, yeah, absolutely. And AI makes it easier to be able to really digest and run scenarios on what it means, as things start to fluctuate, especially in the world of tariffs.
Yeah, and anyone I talk to, it's funny when I ask them questions, they're like, "Well, first we need to look at our supply chain." And I'm like, "Okay, well, this makes sense. Here we are talking about supply chain, and we need to really make sure that we automate it or,
Yeah.
automate it to our best abilities to where we have a smooth run of supply chain. And then we can make decisions based off that. We can take the data easily, make decisions, look at the risks." And I think your entire conversation and the innovation that you've provided here kind of elaborates on that. So I feel like it ties it all together into compliance and how emerging technologies can kind of help us navigate really the future because it's very unknown for us right now. It's been unknown, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, for listeners eager to strengthen their own supply chain strategies, remember that continual innovation, collaboration, and risk awareness are really the key, which we kind of have outlined. Sarah, if you have anything else to say, you may say that now. But um, I was so lucky to speak with you today and kind of get an overlook on how we can make our supply chains more secure, more transparent, and more risk averse. And I feel like AI seems to be the the main factor of it to eliminate all of this and be more creative and be more innovative. So thank you so much for sharing. And if anyone would like to take a look at Open Crown AI, which is a tool that businesses can use, would you say that you large businesses or small businesses use your model most?
We have, I would say it's definitely a mixed bag. So I would say it's anyone who has a physical supply chain,
Okay.
that seems to be really where we sit. But I mean, like I said, all the small and large businesses are all really dealing with the same challenges this
Yeah.
year and years beyond. So we've been building solutions that solve for some of these challenges.
That's incredible. Actually, I have one last question because I
Yeah.
feel like not all supply chains are the same. Like, do AI tools adapt to that, or do they have a one-way street of moving? Like your supply chain is too complicated. We need to figure it out. Making changes to this AI.
No, it's a really great question. Um, AI from a technology standpoint is very adaptable.
Okay.
So it's able to learn based on your actual uh, processes, your actual supply chain, maybe the nuances that you might have within your actual industry. And for us, um, I would say like it's a great this is a great technology for supply chains because of that. So because it's so adaptable, I mean, as supply chains, all we're doing is building in more diversification and more flexibility and having technology that matches those needs and really matches that mindset is incredibly valuable. So I would say like it is a really good match for us that are in this part of the business and really serving and bringing goods to market, physical goods to market, and it's able to adapt and learn based on your specific data, your specific process, and your specific needs. What other technology is so easy?
That's fantastic. I love technology. For my everyday usage, oh my god. I mean, that's probably the person, I'm
Yeah,
using quotation marks, I use the most.
it is not just a business tool at all, and I so love that that highlight because I mean I'm using it. I'm a working mom. Like I have 3 kids. I'm using it to help organize all of these communications I'm getting from every kid activity, or the
Yeah.
school or such. I mean, I one of my kids plays baseball, and I actually built an AI tool for his team that rates hitting and pitching, and then it gives you feedback and
Wow.
suggestions on changing drills. I mean, the applications are endless. It's just, are you willing to learn it and try? Really to try
Right.
it, I think
Right.
it gets really exciting really quickly. and it bleeds very quickly into personal lives as well.
Yeah. I mean, some of my friends, they're like, just delete the app. And I'm like, "Well, I can't. I can't. It's like my biggest tool in life." And I mean, if you're not jumping on it now, you're going to be left behind in
Yeah.
life and supply
Yeah.
chains. And people might disagree, and that's totally fine. You'll stay there and don't use it. You don't have to. But I'm going to keep using it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's incredible. And I hope to see more people or more businesses being able to use AI in their supply chains just so, I mean, it can make their life easier. And especially right now, there's so much going on. It's so many things to take into account. And if at least one sector can be taken care of,
Yeah.
I think that's a step in the right direction. So again, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and
Yeah.
being part of this podcast. We're so lucky to have you on, and hopefully, get to see you in person one day.
Yeah.
But for now, to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. We do have a webinar coming up, which I've kind of started to organize with Cindy Allen. It's happening October 3rd. It is not on supply chain; it's on de minimis. I know de minimis is gone. The name of it is de minimis is gone. What can you do now? It is October 3rd. And it is just $35. Usually we do free, but this one is 35. It's just going to give you lots of insights. The way you can remember if Taylor Swift is releasing her album on October 3rd, we call Cindy Allen the Taylor Swift of trade. So remember, it is October 3rd, 12 p.m. Central Time. Please join us. It's a great way to learn what you can do now, now that de minimis is gone. So I just wanted to put that pitch out there because I think it'll be beneficial for people. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this podcast with Sarah. And if you have any questions for her or for us, please email us, or you can always use our LinkedIn to connect. And yeah, we will see you next Monday. So have a great week. Bye. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks.